Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. A county auditor plays a vital role of fiscal officer of a county with oversight responsibilities for all the financial books and records. It is the auditor's job to provide a system of checks and balances so as to ensure no part of government is without accountability in complying with the state statutes. Our guest today is Rick Faccin, the Auditor of Madison County, Illinois. Prior to his election as auditor, Mr. Faccin was a long-time Director of Catholic Charities, a position for which he received numerous awards for his service to the agency. From 1994 to 2000, he served as a member of the Madison County Board. Today we're going to learn more about what this auditor does and what he hopes to accomplish in the future. Rick Faccin, welcome to Conversation.
Thank you, Lee. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you've been auditor since, what is it?
2000.
2000 or 2003?
2000.
2000. So you've been there a while.
A little over 11 years now. I'm finishing up my third term.
Right. You like it?
I love the job.
Is what I described pretty much correct?
I'd say it's very much accurate. My whole life has been in public service in the private sector at Catholic Charities for over 22 years. And I was on the county board for 6 years, and I've served as county auditor for a little over 11 years. That'll be 12 at the end of the term.
When you were a member of the county board, what did you think about the auditor's office and what the relationship of the board to the auditor was? And then now that you're auditor, what do you think of your relationship as auditor to the board? Well,
the relationship was good back then. And the auditor basically is the watchdog for the county. And we want to make sure that our funds are spent appropriately and that the citizens are getting the best bang for their buck. Mm-hmm. When I was on the county board, I felt like I was accountable to the constituents in my district. And during my tenure there on the county board, we brought back more money to Alton, where I live at, than I think in the history of the county. We were able to fix roads, buy machinery. It was under Mayor Sandridge's regime for the most part. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed my time on the county board very much.
What district were you?
District 10 at Alton,
okay.
The east end of town.
So what made you decide to move from the county board and go to the auditor's position?
Well, once I got into county government, I enjoyed the process very much. The auditor's position came open, and I was the chief financial officer for our operations in Alton, and it was something that really interested me. And when the position came open, the opportunity was there, I seized it. Mm-hmm.
Now, as a county boardman for 6 years, does that entitle you to some pension for being a county boardman?
It's IMRF. I was in the IMRF pension, which I am now.
Would it explain to people what that is?
That's the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund.
Right.
Much different. When I was on the county board, Lee, and before I took office as county auditor, I gave back my ECHO pension fund.
Now, what's an ECHO pension fund?
ECHO is where you could work one day and collect 80% of your salary. And
that's a pretty good deal.
That's a real good deal. Some people may say I'm a little insane for giving it back, but this is about public service. My whole life has been about public service. Once I gave back the 80% pension fund, it's not a political ploy. It's irrevocable. So I'm in the same pension fund at Madison County as every other working man and woman over there. Mm-hmm. It's on a percentage basis, not nearly at 80%. It's a fair and equitable pension fund that is very solvent. And I think it's funded, the last time I looked, at the 86.5% level. So it's a just pension fund, but far from the 80% that I gave back, which probably over my lifetime is going to cost me hopefully in my lifetime, is going to cost me several $100,000s. But again, when you get into this, and I was into this with Catholic Charities, my feeling is it's about public service. I gave it back and I have no regrets.
What you've actually said, if you look at this in the reverse, is that taxpayers are spending a lot of money on other people who haven't given that money back, that they're getting over their lifetime hundreds of thousands of dollars
Yes.
of pension funds, even when they're not working anymore?
Yes. I mean, the way the pension fund was set up, as I said, you could work one day and collect 80% of your salary upon retirement. So,
and what sort of salary are those people that were going to that program? What are they making?
well, it just depends on what their positions are. It's an elected
what
pension.
range? Like 80 to 150,000?
Probably you're probably 80 to 150,000. 150 would be on the high side.
Right.
I'd say probably 80 to 130,000. Now we're not talking about just a county.
So you get 80%. So they're getting 80% till they die?
Yes.
Okay.
But that pension fund, the county board under Dunstan's direction has been withdrawn, so it's not available anymore. That was corrected.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that, of course, everybody knows Illinois has some money problems. But I understand that, well, as the auditor, what do you think that the Madison County financial situation is?
Well, our position, there's no question about it. Our position is very strong. We sit here today and we have roughly 40% of our general fund in reserve. The county has minimal debt. We've spent down our debt. It is minimal, and Madison County today probably sits here as one of a few counties in the state of Illinois who has been responsive to the needs of our citizens. And we're in good shape. Fiscally, we're in great shape.
As opposed to the state?
As opposed to the state or the feds, for that matter.
Yeah, well. So what is different about what you guys are doing in Madison County as opposed to what they're doing in Springfield?
Well, I can only speak to what we're doing in the county because I'm not all that much familiar with what they're doing specifically in Springfield. But in the county, we've made cuts when we've had to make cuts. And just to give you an example, we enjoyed money off the tobacco lawsuit, if you remember, a few years back. But we took that money and we didn't put it into the general. We spent down our debt. We paid off debt. Our tax levy in the last year was probably the lowest tax levy we've had in 10 years since Chairman Dunstan's been there anyway, I believe. Now, you know, you have to remember that the county portion of their bill is only 8 cents on the dollar. So I don't know that you're going to see a significant impact on your property tax bill just because the county has been responsive and made the cuts and held the line on budgets. And as a matter of fact, I always say the numbers don't lie. So you go back and you look at where we're at. And the county has been responsive. County government has been responsive to the needs of our citizens. And our fiscal picture dictates that.
Of course, most of you were mentioning tax money, most of the money goes to Dr. Hightower over at the Edwardsville School District or the Collinsville School District or some of the other school districts. Something like 60% or 60 to 70% of the tax bill actually goes for schools, right? You say the county gets 8 cents,
roughly
library
8 cents.
Districts get a few pennies in there, fire districts get a few pennies in there too, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So now, let's move away from tax bills to what is it that your day-to-day life is like as the county auditor? What do you do?
Well, we monitor the expenses. We make sure that our monies are being spent properly. We monitor the activities of the departments over there. We make sure that funding and that people are staying within budgets. That's a big thing. And we give quarterly reports on that.
I mean, do you look at like receipts? Somebody goes out and buys, you know, a new a new computer, or they go out and buy, you know, file folders or something, and there's a receipt that comes in. You actually are going through these receipts?
I have employees that go through receipts, and we monitor expenditures by each department. Now, we give people the latitude to spend within their budgets, but if somebody comes in, and you know, we get heck sometimes from people over there that My girls are pretty tough on expenditures. Somebody may want to buy napkins or buy donuts for a meeting, and that's not always permissible depending on what the situation is and what their source of funding is.
So the receipt comes in, but it might not be approved against budget?
No, that's correct. Or we'll call over there and say, look, this isn't appropriate. Sometimes it draws, a negative response from people, but that's our job. Our job is to make sure that taxpayer money is being spent appropriately, and sometimes it's a tough call with small expenditures and things like that, but basically we want to make sure they're spending their budget appropriately and they're staying within budget.
What is your relationship with the Treasurer's Office, which of course is where all this money, the checks are all written to?
Well, right now it might be, because of the bond issue, it might be a little bit
Explain what you
off-keel.
mean by the bond issue.
Well, the treasurer, shortly after he won the election,
this would be in 2010?
yes,
Okay.
they spent, Kirk Prenzler wasn't there yet, it was still Frank Miles. They bought roughly $41.5 million in step-up bonds. They have an internal policy in the office that went out to 10 years. These exceeded the 10-year policy, went to 15 years. So I question that, and as a matter of fact, I think my comments are in some papers. I was critical of that process. I talked to Miles and Foley and said, what are you guys doing? You exceeded the 10-year policy when this all kind of broke. Chief Investment Officer at the time told me, Rick, don't worry about the 15 years. He said, those bonds will be called long before that.
Explain to people who don't know what the term called means.
Called means that when the federal government calls the bond, they pay you at 100% value plus the interest. So
in other words, they say that even though it's a 15-year, we're stopping it right then and
they're
there.
going to stop it because
we want our paper back, here's your money
that's
back
right.
plus interest.
Well, because it's a bad deal for the feds if they hold on to it. Just to give you an idea, these bonds that were invested in paid interest rates, if they went to maturity, anywhere from 5.5% to 10%.
Well, that's pretty good at this.
That's real good because they've come out and say that interest rates are going to be low through 2014.
Right.
Excuse me. So anyway, I met with the treasurer in 2011 with him and his chief investment officer. I told them at the time, hold on to these bonds because we're going to lose money if you sell them.
This is under the new
treasurer,
office.
Kurt Prenzler,
Right.
Jeremy Plank as chief investment officer. They went ahead, they sold them anyway. We incur roughly a $365,000 loss up front of the bonds.
Now, how was that determined that there was a loss?
Because he sold the bonds, and when he sold them at the time, he paid the penalty, which was $365,000.
Okay.
Now, make no mistake about it. If you hold on to these step-up bonds, they're all AAA rated bonds. If you hold on to them to maturity, you can do nothing but make money. As a matter of fact, previous to the sale of those bonds, the county had received over $743,000 in interest on these bonds. So the treasurer and his chief investment officer sell the bonds. We lose $355,000 to $365,000 in losses. That's an actual loss. Okay, it's not a prognostication on my part. That's actual money. So now we track what we would have got, and it's interesting to note that the treasurer that the 16 different investments, 16 different step-up bonds that the prior treasurer and his chief investment officer had was paying an aggregate average of 2.71. Okay, Mr. Prenzler comes in, he sells them, he takes the $41.5 million that was broken down into 16 separate investments, and he invests them at treasury notes at 0.3 of a point. Okay, so we're calculating the difference in loss interest versus what they're in now, and that total has risen to over $759,000 in loss. Now,
this would have potentially actually a potential gain that you would have had.
That we would have had.
Right.
No question about it. I mean, my numbers are undeniable. So
it's not like they took $700,000 out of the Treasury. There would have been $700,000 more going into the Treasury, right?
yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So as we move forward and we sit here today, 69% of that portfolio has been called. So we've got
the one that got sold that had they held on to it, it would have been called,
Yes.
and the government would have
no,
paid.
it's called.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, right. But the government would have taken it off their hands anyways.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The government called the bonds at 69%. Roughly, I think it's 28.5 million approximately.
Of the 15 years, how far were they into this when they finally called
Right
them?
at about a year and 3 months.
Really?
So, yes.
And how long had the bonds been held at the time of sale?
Well, I'm talking about the time, for the time that they were bought in, I think, 2010. But from the time they were sold until present, we would have had over 759,000.
Right.
We had a realized gain of over 743,000 up to the sale point.
Right.
So you can see, as you track this, you're only going to make money off of it. So that's what that situation is. And we've had like 28.5 million called approximately of the 41.5 million. It comes to right at 69% of that have been called. So my estimate, now this is an estimate, the $759,500 and some odd dollars is an actual. But we're going to end up in the neighborhood of close to or right at $1 million that we would have gained if we wouldn't have sold the bonds.
Okay. So, of course, that's the Treasurer's office. What else, besides this issue, which you're covering right now, what is the relationship between the Auditor's office and the Treasurer's office? Not this issue, but what else do you guys work on
Well,
together?
in general, I mean, his chief deputy's running against me, so it's a little bit of a strained relationship there. We conduct business, and we've got an open line of communication in there. They're going through a situation down there where we've charted errors and different things of that nature, and I'd just like to say there's room for improvement, believe me. So that's where we're at today.
All right. And your relationship, we covered the county board. What about your relationship with the board chairman, Mr. Dunstan? What is
good relationship.
What is not person to person, but what is the office relation between the auditor and the county board chair? Is there something there?
Well, there's a relationship in the sense, and it's a valuable relationship, is that I talk to the county board chairman about any areas of concern that we have fiscally. The bond issue, I've kept him attuned to that. Any problem areas that we foresee in the county, there's a direct and open line of communication between myself and Alan Dunstan, the county board chairman. It goes back, you look at this, Lee, and you look at the situation in our county. Our county, as I've stated previous, is an excellent financial position. We've made tough decisions in conjunction with the county board chairman, with our collaboration with him and Director of Administration, Joe Parente, has been excellent. I've always been a firm believer, you don't arrive most of the time at a spot that you're at in your life or in a situation like you are in county government by accident. You arrive at that determination through good planning, good fiscal management, and I believe that, as I said before, I like to use the cliche, the numbers don't lie, and our numbers don't lie. I mean, Madison County's in strong fiscal position, and I can't say that enough. So that's where we're at today.
What about a lot of people don't understand what townships are, but it's subdivisions of the county. What are these township financial situations like?
Well,
and do you monitor that? Is that part of your job?
No, we don't monitor township governments. But I would imagine that a lot of townships are in the same position that the states are in. I mean, I think most governmental entities today are struggling out there fiscally, and I think revenue is difficult to come by. We're probably, in the most dire position that we've been in, maybe in my lifetime, at least to what I can remember. So I think in general, probably townships and municipalities are feeling the strain of the economy and what they're seeing out there. That's what makes our position so desirable, is that Madison County today is doing very well. Now, if you go out and you ask a guy about, are you happy with your property? No, we're not. People aren't happy with property taxes, and I believe there's another way to do it. We have to find another way to fund government besides property taxes, but that's got to come out of Springfield too.
Well, as I said, most property taxes are going to schools, so
yes.
What you're saying is we need an alternative mechanism to the funding of schools.
Yes, yes. Well, and there's no question schools have to be funded, but I hate to see the burden fall on property owners. There has to be a different alternative than that. That's my opinion of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've been an observer in government for a number of years. From the American good times to the American bad times. In your opinion, how has your state of Illinois gone from where they were to where they are now? What is it what mistakes have they made compared to what Madison County did?
Well, just a general overview, I think their spending has probably spiraled out of control. That would be my first, comment to that situation.
On what is this spending spiraling? Or not specifically, but what general categories are we talking about where they're spending more than they should?
Well, I don't know where they're spending the money at. You'd have to sit down and look at their budget, see what items are budgeted, what budget lines they have, where monies are being spent at. The problem that you have now, and the problem that I think our governor has, is you're not going to make anybody happy because you're going to have to cut. And when you cut, you're violating somebody's interest. Mm-hmm. So that makes it difficult. And you're going to have a lot of angry people when you do that. That's why with us, a lot of and I can only speak directly about Madison County, we've lost positions mainly through attrition. There's been some layoffs, and you hate to see anybody lose a job. You really do in this environment. Most of our cuts have come through attrition, and I think we've lost in the neighborhood of about 200 workers, probably in the last 5 or 6 years. We haven't replaced positions. We basically, in simplistic terms, we have made do with what we have. Mm-hmm. So our spending has been cut. Just to give you an idea, okay, I came out this year, and there's a lot of people hurting out there. I gave back, and I was the first one to do this, my 4% pay raise. And there's probably a more than decent chance that we're looking at a couple more zeros up front for the next couple years. Mm-hmm. So we've made the sacrifices, and other elected officials over there followed suit. We've made sacrifices where we've had to make sacrifices, and we've cut spending where we've had to cut spending, and that's why I think the county's in the shape it is right now.
Part of the change, of course, when you were a young man, I'll bet in Alton that you saw a lot of industrial base that was operating there. Guys could just knock on the door, I want a job, boom, they're in, whether they were a high school graduate or not. That situation's kind of changed, hasn't it?
That situation has eroded. I can remember, excuse me, I've got a bit of a cough. I can remember, as you just said, if you weren't academically inclined and you didn't want to go to school after high school, you could walk down, I could literally walk down the street. You had Laclede Steel, you had the box board, you had O&I's Glass, just to name 3. You probably went in, filled out an application, and you start working the next week. Those days are over. Our industrial base has eroded in all. And now
the county used to get a lot of tax money off these businesses, didn't they? So that's made quite a bit of difference.
That's impacted budgets too. So what we've done is we're still trying to find an answer to that, and that's not easy to do. I think our city officials, and I can only speak to Alton, but probably as you look at it county-wide, are trying to find alternative sources of revenue, and that's difficult in this environment. But yeah, you're going back to the days when we had industry. And Alton Alton, Granite City were probably the 2 cities that stood out the most. that was more or less the glory days, and that's when you put people to work and industry flourished, especially in our county in different pockets. At Alton and Granite were probably two of those pockets that were prevalent.
Mm-hmm. Of course, that's changed, you know, not just in Alton and Granite. I mean, that is a national issue of,
Yes.
of what do they call it, deindustrialization of the United States,
Yes.
which some people somehow think is a good idea. We got about 3-4 minutes left here. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered here yet? Because now's a good time to go for it.
Well, I think I'm proud of the fact that my whole life has been in public service, as I said, in the private sector and as in the government sector. I've been able to serve children and families when I was at Catholic Charities. When I left there, the agency was in good shape. I was on the county board. The county has been in good shape. Some of the accomplishments I have that I'm proud of, I was voted bipartisan County Auditor of the Year in 2010 in the state of Illinois. I'm president of our state association. I'm on the IACO, Illinois Association of County Officials Executive Board. You look at Madison County and you have leadership. 4 of our elected officials are presidents of their state association. And I think that speaks to the leadership we have here in Madison County and how we arrived at the results and how we are today. So I'm most proud of that. I'm proud of our performance in the auditor's office. I'm proud of our staff. I think I've got an excellent staff who works hard every day, and I think that speaks well of not only them, but the citizens or the workers in Madison County who come to work every day, work hard, do their jobs, and repeat that the next day and come in. And I'm proud of Madison County.
How large is your staff?
My staff is about 11 people. We got, I think, 10 full-time, 1 part-time.
Well, that doesn't seem like a whole lot.
No, but
it's
what we've reduced our workforce since I've been there through attrition. I haven't laid anybody off, but they're awfully busy these days. So we'll get the job done and we'll do it with a high degree of quality.
One of the things that I've noticed is that there are certain departments in county government that, boy, they seem a lot bigger than like the days when Evelyn Bowles ran the county clerk's office.
Well, I think if you go back and you look at those departments today, they're pretty lean and mean. We've lost, like I said, 200 jobs, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 jobs over there. So we're about at the point where you can't lose any more people and still deliver quality service. So I know in the old days, yes, we had more people, but if you look at Madison County government today, the workforce has been generally reduced, and I'd hate to see any more reduction there.
Well, thank you so much for coming and being with us and sharing your story about the auditor's office. I'll bet most people don't even know that this office exists first. But thanks very much.
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate it.
Very welcome. And I've been speaking with Rick Faccin. He is the auditor of Madison County. You heard what the job is. It's a really important job to make sure that money's taken care of. For the rest of you, see you next week. Thank you.